YAML. Prerequisites for Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service EKS. 1. AWS account. Purpose: access to AWS services and resources. Explanation. An AWS account is fundamental for using EKS. It provides the necessary authentication and authorization mechanisms to access and manage AWS services, including EKS. You need an AWS account to create EKS clusters, manage nodes, deploy applications, and access other related services. 2. AWS Identity and Access Management Inc. Purpose: securely control access to AWS resources. Explanation. ING enables you to define permissions and roles for users and services. This is crucial for EKS security. You'll use ING to create roles for your EKS cluster and nodes, allowing them to access specific AWS services and resources. You can also use ING to control access to your Kubernetes resources within the cluster. 3. AWS Virtual Private Cloud VPC. Purpose: a private network to host your EKS cluster. Explanation. EKS clusters are deployed within a VPC, a logically isolated virtual network within AWS. This provides security and isolation from the public internet. You'll need to configure a VPC with subnets for your cluster nodes, control plane, and other EKS components. 4. Subnets for nodes and control plane. Purpose: dedicated network space for cluster components. Explanation. EKS requires separate subnets for the control plane and worker nodes. The control plane subnet houses the cluster's master nodes, responsible for managing the cluster. The worker node subnet hosts the actual worker nodes, where your application containers run. 5. Kubernetes knowledge. Purpose: understanding Kubernetes concepts and terminology. Explanation. EKS is built on top of Kubernetes, so a basic understanding of Kubernetes principles is essential. This includes concepts like pods, deployments, services, namespaces, and controllers. Familiarity with these concepts will help you effectively manage your EKS cluster and deploy applications. 6. AWS CLI or SDK. Purpose: interacting with AWS services from the command line. Explanation. The AWS CLI or SDK provides a way to interact with AWS services programmatically. You'll likely use them to manage EKS clusters, nodes, and other resources from your local machine or automated scripts. 7. Docker. Purpose: building and running containerized applications. Explanation. Docker is a common tool for building, running, and managing containerized applications. It's essential for creating container images for your applications that will be deployed to your EKS cluster. 8. kubectl. Purpose: command line interface for interacting with Kubernetes clusters. Explanation. kubectl is the primary command line tool for managing Kubernetes resources. You'll use kubectl to interact with your EKS cluster, deploy applications, manage pods, and perform other cluster management tasks. 9. Network connectivity. Purpose: access to the internet and your AWS infrastructure. Explanation. EKS requires network connectivity to access AWS services, download container images, and communicate with other components. Ensure your machine has the necessary internet connectivity and access to your AWS infrastructure. 10. Understanding of containerization and microservices architecture. Purpose: effective application development for Kubernetes. Explanation. EKS is designed to host containerized applications, so an understanding of containerization principles is crucial. You should be familiar with concepts like container images, Docker files, and microservice architecture. This will help you develop and deploy your applications effectively on EKS.